That girl begged me to save her life. I stared at her with cold eyes and flashed the glowing magic circle on my wrist to prove I was a mage. Then she stood frozen in shock as my fire magic turned her into a giant torch. Back earlier today, that slave merchant threw a bucket of freezing water right on me. I really shouldn't have been asleep right before the new buyers showed up. He slammed me in the face just because I gave him a bad look. All I could do was wait for someone to come along and buy me. The group of adventurers picked me to join them. This was my moment, and like all adventurers, I took the bait to slip through the portal. Some monsters are scary and can do anything, but using slaves to draw them out and fight them is a really smart move. They walked to the entrance, and then the leader used his knife to mark it. They will be the very first ones to walk through the door. No one has ever found these hidden treasures before. We stepped through the portal and found ourselves in a world that was totally different. The plants are huge, holding me down with chains, but I can't stop thinking about how big the monsters really are. They claimed they were pros, yet they failed to see the creature creeping up on them. She was the first one to fall. Everyone stopped in their tracks, wondering how that thing could have just appeared without anyone noticing. They hadn't gotten a chance to use me as bait yet. The group leader stood his ground against the monsters, screaming at his friend to tie up the slaves and use them as bait. The fat slave scared the others, and they all took off thinking they had escaped, until a monster caught up and buried him right there. The leader was silenced by a monster's roar and met the same sad end as his friend. The red-haired boy spotted me coming and thought he might just make it through alive. He begged for my help, but I just shook my head and walked away. He screamed in rage, demanding to know why a slave wouldn't listen to his master. I'm not weak, and these creatures won't stop me. I grabbed the mage's staff from one of them and snatched the magic ring from another. Monsters swarmed around me, striking from every direction. So I used fire magic to burn away anyone who came too close. A fire mage stands untouchable when fighting from far away. The fight dragged on until I finally saw all the monsters lying defeated around me. The girl, the last one left alive, begged me to pull her out of the portal so she wouldn't die. My face must have shown my anger. I just can't stand people who use slaves. So I did to her exactly what they wanted to do to me before. As I stepped out of the portal back into the city, everyone stopped in their tracks, wondering how a slave like me dared walk the streets all alone. I couldn't just run, because I had to break free from the chains holding me down. While no one else knows, I still remember my life before I was born. After the mightiest heroes fell battling the legendary dragons Gornthale, I, El Palm, the lone survivor of that golden age, was left standing alone. I gave everything I had until the very end, but my strength alone couldn't stop this disaster. My heart pounded with anger and fear as I watched my friends fall. I watched my girl get knocked out right in front of me. This is so frustrating that my hate, which is as endless as the universe, might have brought me back because I probably died in that last attack. But I woke up in that slave prison 6 years back in time. Before long, the great Lord Abbeys heard all about me. His worker warned that the slave came back without a scratch, which was strange because the bait is usually the first one to die. Abbeys couldn't believe it. How could every adventurer have fallen while he was still standing? This trick lures the monsters in, and if the whole group falls, the slave meets the same fate right there. And a slave stays a slave forever unless he pays his debt or dies. The man whispered a few more secrets to Abbeys, revealing that the slave holds a powerful magic circle. To Abbeys, this is an absolute disaster. Every slave will feel hatred for the merchant union. Letting someone like that go free is a dangerous gamble. Then the next part of the report had Abbeys' jaw drop when the slave stepped forward to register as an adventurer. Abbeys leaped over the table the moment he realized Lord Raikin was involved. When a big boss starts paying attention to this slave, it means things are about to get very serious. Once the employee was gone, Abbeys thought about how everything worked. If you owe money to the gaffer market and can't pay it back on time, you'll be forced to become a slave. That boy is a slave because his parents died of sickness, leaving their unpaid debt to bind him. His parents bought the black moss by taking out a loan. When a merchant union raised the price over and over, our debt swelled to 10,000 meso, the coins we use. El Palm was blamed for his family's debt and forced into slavery until he could pay it all off. Now, a person with countless reasons to despise the gaffer market was standing there. Palm sat in the office ready to bargain with Abbeys, Raikin's right-hand man, who casually agreed to swap the slave contract for an F-rank Adventurer 1. Palm grinned and mentioned he had to be an E-rank. Abbeys said that only those who have been around for a long time are good enough to be E-rank. The slave has never done a thing like this before. Palm explained that after being lured and caught dozens of times in 3 years, his very survival proves he is the greatest explorer because staying alive is the most important thing. Even Abby's couldn't say no to that. As he gazed at the boy, a strange feeling took hold of him. Then he suggested they try a test. If Palm joins the 5-person portal group that already holds 12 markers from fallen teams, he'll prove he's worth it. The next day, Palm met up with a team of 4 seasoned explorers ready to take on a mission. The leader of the group stepped forward, introduced himself, and proudly declared that everyone else was a powerhouse. Our boy lived as a slave for a few years before his past life finally came back to him. To the group, he looked like a harmless, fresh-faced kid. They must step through the portal to grab the items left behind by the other 12 groups who entered and died. So, the prize you get all comes down to that. Inside, they feel the place is gloomy, so they decide to pitch a camp and take shelter in the trees before they go exploring. Since Palm is new, he can relax while the white-haired man, who's an expert at setting up camp, gets to work for his friends. Soon, they built a wonderful camp. They will split up into 2 teams. Tom and Max will go one way, while Chev and Palm will go the other. Then, the team split up and headed their separate ways, with a rule to come straight back to base if anything went wrong. Chev found nothing as he walked, so he shared what he'd heard about Palm being a slave and asked him to join their group after being moved by his story. Our MC ignored everything else and stared right at the footprint. They headed back to the camp, but there was nothing left to find, so they ate and rested. Palm finished his drink, and when night fell, the group made their way to where he was sleeping. Chef shouted to see if he was actually asleep. Then his friend asked what the captain was doing, and of course he was knocked out. They slipped sleeping pills into the food and drinks they handed to Palm. If they get rid of the slave, the reward meant for 5 of them will be split only between the 4 who are left. He lifts his arm, holds up his dagger, and gets ready for the fight. The blade drops straight down right toward the body lying on the ground. Tom keeps asking what happened and trying to make sense of things, but when he pulls back the blanket and screams that Palm is gone, he realizes the truth. Chev's team stares in shock, unable to figure out how that could have happened. Chev gives the order to search, telling his men to find him right where he must be, since he couldn't have gone far. All at once, a huge boom shakes the area around us. From a safe distance, the Palm watches as their supply depot burns. Chev sees the culprit right away and shouts for everyone to grab the food and supplies. Max points at something and asks the boss what's going on. A huge, slippery monster suddenly forms right in front of them. Chev sees the mess and knows Palm is the one who caused it all. He reads the plan and realizes they were just bait to catch the monster. Tom gets launched into the air and flies away after the creature hits him. A slimy monster lunges at the adventurers, pressing them hard while Palm watches from afar, muttering that their kindness was foolish for accepting him as bait in a deadly portal where 12 veteran teams had already failed. Palm nods, realizing the boss of that area was indeed the monster he always suspected. Chev sprints across the ground, knowing that kind of creature puts them at a total disadvantage. Max asks the boss who the monster is, and he guesses it's a gold slime. He explains that this rare boss is special because it only shows up in red portals, a sight that is very uncommon in Maple World. That thing's body is pure acid, which makes it the absolute worst enemy for anyone who tries to fight it up close. Max screams for Chev to duck and then pushes him hard out of the way just as the monster strikes. Chev spins around in shock, shouting, "What was that?" before realizing the danger, noticing that the monster can strike from far away. Max freezes in panic as he realizes the hit, but Chev snaps everyone back to reality, shouting for a retreat since the acid-shooting power won't recharge for a full minute. Tom hides away and finally sees that the monster's special power has stopped working for a while. He sprints toward Max, shouting that time remains, and leaps forward with his sword to face the monster alone, but Chev grabs him, insisting they must strike together. The beast lunges forward once more, throwing Tom back before he can get any closer. Max watches the scene, lost in thought as he tries to make sense of what just happened. He insists that the cooldown timer should still show 10 seconds left. Then the monster unleashes its powerful long-range strike once again. Palm looks at the frozen monster and says it seems like we've won. He paused to think and realized that Chev was actually right. The gold slime grows stronger with every item it eats, making its special powers happen faster. He gets it now. He sees why the old teams lost because the acid arrows never stopped coming and the group was way too big. The monster has grown so tall it's now at the level of the yellow portal, which means it's far too dangerous for a first circle adventurer to fight. Palm knows the dungeon is empty and calls the mission a failure. Suddenly, he is back in the past, watching Abby's hold out a scroll and dare him to prove his words. He just gives a tiny smile and lets it go. The slimy beast turns to face the newcomer, locks its eyes on the stranger, and takes a direct hit from an attack. Palm watches from a distance, doubtful that his powerful blow to the core even mattered thanks to the enemy's overwhelming defense. He quickly assesses the situation, realizing he needs to land at least 5 more shots, but he just brushes it off and says it doesn't matter. With a grin, he says he's going to show him he's wrong. He must land the perfect blow with no room for mistake. So he accepts a dangerous challenge that a normal mage would never dare to try. But he's not just any mage. He's the greatest telekinetic to ever walk this world, carrying a past life title that only the best ever wore. He shoots a fire arrow straight at the monster. The beast darts away with unbelievable speed for its size, yet he shrugs it off and readies another strike. The projectile hits its mark perfectly and explodes, revealing a glowing core inside, which causes a palm to leap forward and charge at the weak spot. He gathers all his strength for the final blow, but he doesn't see the slime springing forward to strike back. Palm grins as he prepares to strike the final blow. He fires the flaming arrow and lets it fly. He tugs the string, turns the tip into a huge spear, and throws it. Palm swings into a tree, holds fast, and keeps his eyes locked on the target as it moves. The monster falls apart completely, its body breaking under the strain. As the smoke fades away, the empty battlefield stands revealed. The palm lands right in the middle of the broken pieces. Suddenly, Palm spots something coming closer. The glowing heart of the beast drifts calmly toward his open palm. He grabs the thing, his fingers tightening around it. The absorption starts, and energy rushes into his body. Palm builds a shield around himself, raising his defenses. In another room, Palm sits down at a table with a man and calmly says, "I'm back," while the man wearing an eye patch stares at him in silence from across the table. He dryly remarks that Palm wasn't just showing off, but Abby's wonders why Palm came back alone and without the item. Palm reveals that the group of amateur hunters plotted to steal his things, and then tells the group what really happened. Palm slipped away to dodge them, only to crash straight into the boss and meet their end. Abby's nervously asks if they died to the monster, but the truth spills out. It was a gold slime. And the man quickly realizes that, with that kind of thing, every single item inside the portal melts away. He seethes with anger as he imagines the ruined rented gear, knowing the merchant guild supplies are gone forever in a loss he'll never forget. But then the problem was this guy came back to life. There are a few basic rules for portals, and the first one is that only a small number of people can step through at the same time. The second rule says that how hard a challenge is and which circle you're in will decide if you can enter it. The third rule says the portal can only be used once, because it gets destroyed if anyone makes it through and walks out alive. The man realizes the portal is lost, and that only Palm survived. He admits honestly that Palm is a failure, no matter what excuse there might be. Palm tells him he's too impatient and warns that his explanation isn't finished yet. He tightens his fist and thinks about the glowing gold slime. The man with the eye patch stammers in denial until the truth finally dawns on him. Palm grins and says he ate the monster's core, which shocks the man who realizes Palm has now absorbed its gold slime mana and unlocked 2 circles. He declares that's proof enough. Then when Palm asks for the promised E rank, Abby's cuts him off and offers the better to rank instead, leaving Palm completely stunned. Abby's leans forward and shouts, "I'll offer you a D rank, but work for me and you'll be treated like a C rank adventurer." So Palm immediately signs the contract to make it official. Abby's thinks to herself that giving a C rank to someone who isn't even in the first circle feels like a special favor. In the end, he realizes that adventurer ranks are decided by the number of circles around a person's name, because those circles show just how strong they are. Abby's wraps up his thinking, declaring that bastard isn't normal, because you simply can't climb up circles just by swallowing a mana stone. He remembers Palm's words, realizing that saying them was just his brain trying to keep him alive. Abby smirks at the thought of a barely trained first circle mage completely crushing a second circle one, seeing it as a sign of huge future growth. Abby's eyes sparkled with greed as he decided he just had to have him. Palm felt the shift in the room, seeing his recovery speed up so much that the other guy was already getting restless. Just as they get ready, a new door appears in a different place, showing that something huge is coming. The very first raid, led by 100 red rank heroes, is about to begin. And with that, the long-awaited major event for garments merchants and guilds is finally starting. Palm claims everything is fine, saying he's rushing too and thinks pushing our plans ahead is a great idea. He turns to Abby's and asks for a favor, to which Abby's says, "Just ask." And after Palm extends his hand to borrow money, Abby's lights a cigar and thinks about the request. He thinks about the nerve and decides the bastard is already crossing the line. While many believe the portal age started with heroes, It was actually a deadly trap set by the Black Mage who wiped out countless adventurers and doomed Maple World to fall in just 3 years as the monsters grew too strong to fight back. Abby's watches from the window as Palm walks out of the big building, slipping the money into his pocket and thinking it's a good start even if it isn't enough yet. In the end, the red portal marked for level 100 only opens its doors to those who carry 2 circles. The Garmot Merchant Union is pouring money into him to seize the portal, since buying his own gear now would be a waste because items at his level are far too expensive. Palm strolls down the street and walks straight toward the door. He steps inside and takes a quick look around. A man greets Palm warmly, inviting him into the slave market and offering to be his guide. The seller casually asks if you're hunting for a mechanic or a warrior to join you. Palm replies calmly that he has someone in mind and asks the man to show the way. The seller looked puzzled and didn't really get Palm's game. He leads Palm through the punishment field to a place where someone like the one he seeks can be found. He leads him to a cell and points inside. The man hesitantly asks if the client truly wants that guy, and Palm simply nods, confirming he knows exactly what's up. Palm watches the prisoner chained to the wall, silent and still. He knows he's finally found the chained man he was hunting. Back in that past life, the passing of one person made the world end faster. The axe-wielding heroine Erin faced her only former apprentice, Debo the hero killer, who unleashed an unbelievable display of power that doomed everything. The prisoner asks with a sharp, suspicious glare, "You came for me?" before telling Palm to leave in a voice so cold it felt like ice, adding, "I don't know. You get lost." The vendor apologized to the client and mentioned that the prisoner's mind feels a little off. The prisoner clenched his jaw in pain from the harsh treatment. The vendor, speaking without holding back, claims there are other crazy dogs like him running around here. Palm gives a small smile and simply watches. Standing beside him, Debo was one of the few who stood out after the final day, often seen as a rival from their own land. Debo sneered at Palm, asking how much he was worth before noting that Palm looked like a wealthy young master who could pay any price. The young master instantly demanded 1,000,000 meso, and you have to ask yourself if that's really so cool. It turns out they both needed money badly. After all, Debo had a younger sister fighting a deadly sickness, and time was running out for them both. He tells Palm to leave if he doesn't have the money, then watches as Palm digs into his jacket pocket. The prisoner gasps in surprise and watches him every step of the way. Palm hands over a thick stack of cash to confirm it's 1,000,000 meso, but both the vendor and Debo stare in shock, wondering if they are actually holding real money or just dreaming. Debo drops his head and shuts up for a second. Palm lays down the rules by offering a 1-year deal that splits the profits and lets him pick the portal items first. The vendor instantly gets the picture. This is a contract for a party member, not one for a slave. Palm stretches out the paper, inviting Debo to take it and take a look. I snatch the contract from his hand because there's no turning back now. He bites his own thumb to seal the deal, accepting instantly because his sister's life depends on it. Palm watches it all and gives a small smile. Once the contract is signed, we march straight to the portal where Debo grins and says, "Leave it to me," but Palm warns, "You'll have to prove your worth," to which Debo happily agrees. "I'll work harder than anyone you've ever seen." So now we're in the forest with Debo following Palm closely, axe in hand. He shouts to his boss, "Thanks for the new weapon, but I'm sticking with my long sword, so let's go back and swap them." Palm quietly tells him to grab an axe, and after Debo confirms that the red 8-entry portal is indeed the test, Palm nods to show it is the correct place. Debo looks around, asking where the rest of the crew is since a rich boss should have a solid team, but Palm just stares in silence while Debo argues they need a healer and wonders if Palm is the boss, only to be instantly reassured that there is no need to worry about the other members. Debo feels a tiny moment of relief. Palm points straight at Debo's chest and says, "Right here," leaving Debo frozen and confused as he stares at the weird gesture. He stammers in disbelief, but Palm kicks Debo into the portal without a second thought, shouting for them to hurry as Debo screams while being thrown across the void. They step into a rocky desert. Debo had to call Palm crazy, an 8-person portal with only 2 of us inside. He grumbles about having to use a weapon he doesn't know how to handle. Suddenly, a swarm of wooden stump monsters bursts out of nowhere and stands right in front of them. Debo sees that his loud shouting ruined everything and brought the tough, tree-like monsters right to them. Palm just shoves him out of the way and yells, "Get out of the way," before charging alone toward the monsters. Palm throws a sharp projectile that smacks right into the head of one of the creatures. Debo gazes at him, stunned by what she just saw. More and more arrows struck the stumps right in the center. Palm scolds him, saying it's disappointing to see him act this way, and he warns Debo not to make that mistake again, leaving him wondering just what kind of monster this guy really is. As the full moon shines bright, The news flies fast, and the merchants fall for the trap. Even though they're stalling for time, all 40 people they needed have already been caught. Then the most important question is asked to the leader. We're asking if we're allowed to go ahead. In the dark shadows, a figure holding a wine glass nods and promises that everything will happen exactly as the other person wants. With a raised glass, he cheers for freedom in Maple World. Debo walked up with a bag, saying he had collected all 27 mana stones. Palm simply shouts, "Keep going," and his friend snaps right along with him. Debo thought Palm was just a crazy guy, but his mind control power is real, and while Debo was dreaming of the cash, Palm stopped him by saying, "I found something." Palm turns to the fresh row of stumps and declares, "That's the perfect number." Debo puzzledly asks what he really means when he calls a number perfect. Palm just stares him down before running away, leaving Debo all alone with the monsters and a weapon he's never even tried before, which sends him straight into panic. He gets ready to fight the huge group coming his way. From afar, Palm keeps a close eye on Debo as he handles the weapon. He knows his friend will soon see that the axe is the tool that will make him stronger. After all, there's no doubt he's talented, since he's the only apprentice picked by the axe hero, Aaron. Debo weaves through the monsters with quick, sure steps, rolling out of the way and raising his arms to stop their blows. Palm sees that he grabbed the item with lightning speed and is already terrifyingly strong, even before he has awakened a circle. Debo gets scared as the ground shakes, thinking it must be an earthquake, right before a giant spike bursts out of the earth right in front of him. He was knocked back by the blast and shouted, "What on earth was that?" only to see a huge Stumpy suddenly appear before him. Palm rushes forward and pushes Debo out of the way just as the monster strikes. He looks down at the beast and shouts, "Your big size just makes you an easier target," while Debo lies on the ground hoping magic will finally work, only for the Stumpy to block the attack right in its mouth. Palm spots the creature moving faster than he thought and blasts it again with telekinesis. He's shocked to see the monster block that one as well. The Stumpy keeps its feet while Palm screams at Debo to run or face death, so Debo knows the attacks aren't useless since the monster is still blocking them. Then the trouble is with the creature's branches. Palm tells Debo to guard the new stumps while he tackles the big monster, but Palm charges in anyway, leaving Debo shocked at his speed and shouting that they need a plan to escape before the Stumpy blocks their way, and a second shot finally hits the beast dead on, making Debo wonder if it truly landed. He's really impressed by the clever plan. In the end, hiding a fire arrow behind the first one meant the monster couldn't stop 2 attacks in a row. Debo realizes that Stumpy can't defend himself against those attacks, and that his boss is far more monstrous than he ever imagined. He clenches jaws tight, grinding his teeth in anger. Suddenly, he spots some stumps slipping past them and shouts, "Look behind you," but Palm wipes them out in a flash. He then asks, "Can't you even handle the little ones?" as the giant Stumpy gets hit again, kicking up a huge cloud of dust. Palm saw that the monster had given him a split-second chance to slip through. Debo springs in front to block the blow and charges straight for his boss. He grins, "I just saved your butt, so you better take back what you said," and Palm agrees, "You're finally pulling your weight," as they both get ready to crush that last challenge. Debo screams, "It's not over yet," and leaps up from below to strike the monster. He lifts his axe high, steeling himself for the last strike. With blood covering his face, Debo decides it's time for dessert. He charges forward without hesitation and brings down the last of the stumps coming at him. Just as Debo prepares to fight, the giant Stumpy shifts his stance and locks his aim directly on Debo. Palm spins into a blazing tornado and blasts the creature with a wave of fire. The creature gets hit straight on, screams in agony, and is swallowed up by the fierce fire. Debo is so tired that he falls down to his knees. Palm steps up to say, "Good job." Debo quickly answers, "You did good, too," and then they walk right past the burning creature's body to keep moving. As night drops over the city, it covers everything like a dark blanket. Sitting at the table, the young woman decides it's time to eat fast and get to bed because it's getting late. She holds her hands tight and whispers a quiet thank you for the food before her. Suddenly, a knock at the door makes the young woman turn around. She opens the door and asks, "Who's there?" while staring silently at the figure standing before her. Soon she sees it's her brother, who carries a bag of coins and shouts, "I'm back," so she hugs him and says, "Welcome home," while nearby a small house stands all alone in the dark forest. Palm steps into the house, clutching his staff hard. He steps past a portrait resting on the furniture and keeps walking deeper into the room. Palm looks at the still body on the bed, but he doesn't show a single feeling. Palm quietly slips away, watching the forest house turn to ashes. Abby finally sees the full picture and knows this mess is going to cause real trouble. He has to fix the 100 gates fast, or Sir Raken will seize control and end the game forever. 10 powerful merchant groups are waiting at the portal, ready to rush in because the rarest treasures are almost certain to be there. A boss crushes his cigar in the ashtray and warns that the job won't be easy, not even a little. He lays it out, admitting that the 3 Natasha sisters from the Goldrich Union are such a deadly trio that the adventurers in Gaffer's second circle have no chance against them. Every union will send its strongest team, and the Gaffer Merchant Union will be easily crushed by them all. Abby's holds up a poster of Palm and admits to himself that he's hesitant, and for good reason. All of a sudden, the office door slammed open with a crash as Abby's barked, wondering who on earth dared to walk in without knocking first. He spins quickly in his chair to face the person who just walked in. Abby spots the stranger and realizes it's Sir Raiken. Already seated, Raiken asks if the group list for clearing the portal is ready, then questions his past rival, but Raiken shuts down any excuse by reminding him that Shev's whole party died, and he won't change his mind. Raiken waves his hand and tells Abby's he needs to try him again. He quickly points out a perfect spot and insists that Abby's bring all the groups he's thinking about together to make it work. Raiken smirks and says they'll have plenty of witnesses this time, while Debo arrives at the portal with a partner and notes that way too many people are showing up. A stranger stepped up and asked if they were the 5th group, and the leader of the front group glanced over to see 2 men there who looked like they had a slave background. Other travelers are already muttering that the duo isn't friendly, but one shouts back that it's just how experienced groups act, following the jungle's own law. Palm quickly figure out this room is full of pros who don't need any bait, which is a whole lot different from Shev's team. The adventurer looks over the open space and shouts a warning that everyone is finally gathered. Abby steps up, cuts right to the chase, and lays it out straight. He's giving you a real shot to prove what you've got. The group leader quickly asks what kind of chance that is. Then Abby's reaches out to the portal and explains that it's simply the chance to clear it. The man in the bandana and his partner stare in shock. Is he for real talking about the 100 gates? While a bystander named Palm overhears someone say, "Looks like we're getting special treatment," and Abby's yells, "Give it your all." Suddenly, the number 40 appears right at the edge of the portal. The portal's entrance snaps open and bathes everything in a scary, glowing light. Suddenly thrown into a thick forest, the group hears their leader ask, "Are we back here again?" He turns to a mage and suggests we team up to hunt the boss for a fair deal. So they all agree to split up and regroup at the first sign. Debo and Palm stood quiet, watching the other groups leave without saying a word. One of the mages, Dolan, yells at his team to kill anything in their way because they don't have much time, but he stops and laughs in disbelief when he sees a tiny creature moving nearby. Convinced that fighting the monster is a pointless waste of time, he quickly charges up his strongest attack and blasts the creature with a deadly beam of energy. Dolan complains the job is too boring and shouts for the magic stone so they can leave, but the creature just stands there like a statue while everyone freezes in shock. Dolan worries his magic might have failed as a teammate shouts that it won't work, prompting Dolan to yell at the team to be careful before they are suddenly swarmed by angry creatures bursting from the ground. After a brutal fight left the group tired among the fallen monsters, one sighed that it was over, while another blamed them for facing stronger foes that wasted their stamina before they even reached the boss. So Dolan decided to break the alliance and charge straight ahead without any more delays. From afar, Palm watches the scene and says that most groups would understand it, while Debo leans on his spear and grumbles about how tough those creatures were and how Palm stood still, but Palm just tells him to chill since there were only 3, and Debo agrees they can't waste time, so he continues. Debo wants to take out the boss right away, but Palm insists on clearing away the trash first, warning that how they handle these small monsters will determine if they can survive the fierce battle ahead against the deadly boss. Debo snaps in frustration. "You always act like you know everything," while Palm stares at the sky, warning that a dark and dangerous force is coming through that portal. Meanwhile, Dolan and his team push deeper into the forest. One of Dolan's partners points out the strange thing she found up ahead. Facing the escape portal, Dolan orders the team to leave marks behind, but one man suddenly bursts into a strange, loud laugh that makes Dolan snap at him to shut up before warning that such noise will summon all the surrounding monsters, causing the rest of the group to hysterically join in the laughter as the poor man wonders what is happening to him. Dolan knows the drink is poison the moment he takes a sip, so he makes up his mind to run away, even if he has to do it by himself and pay any price. Dolan turns to run, only to find a giant mushroom-shaped monster blocking his path right in front of him. As the slow poison takes hold, Dolan begins to laugh in a hollow, scary way that no one else can understand. Suddenly, the view changes to a huge river squeezed tightly between massive cliffs. Debo walks the edge and notices that Palm hasn't thrown a single punch all day. Suddenly, a signal flashes across the sky, and Debo recognizes it right away. The team gathers at the meeting point, and the leader is stunned because they've actually found the boss. Only then does he realize that one of the groups has vanished. But even so, he decides to start explaining, since it looks like everyone else has already arrived. The adventurer said the wizard's group still hasn't arrived, but the leader cut her off with no reason to wait. So, he shouted to everyone that they had finally found the boss. Just as they stepped into the clearing, they watched Dolan's group being wiped out by the deadly, mind-breaking mushrooms. The adventurer's eyes went wide with shock, just as the monster's name was spoken. The heroes quickly realize they must ditch the boss fight and find the escape door. Yet Debo turns to Palm and asks if the monster is truly that scary. Palm leaps straight into the fight, revealing the toughest boss we could face in the dungeon. And can you hear it pounding, Debo? He calmly says they must use ranged attacks due to the spores, but it won't work because the monster is too fast and too tough to hurt. The leader drops the bomb, trapping the boss right in front of the exit and making it impossible to leave without facing him. Debo immediately starts bragging that the monster is no match for him, and he can unleash his invincible fire arrow, but Palm shuts him down instantly. When Debo talks back in annoyance, Palm warns that they'll be dead if they rush in without a plan. Then he firmly asks why the fire arrow can't even scratch the monster, and Palm explains that since the tiny mushrooms in the portal are super tough, the boss must be a tank, though an adventurer complains that it's obvious before the leader cuts him off to say they need to act now. So Palm raises his hand and drops a bombshell. 50,000 misos. The leader turns to him and asks, "What do you mean by that?" Before Palm clears up the math, explaining that with 50,000 misos per person and 30 people present, the total comes to 1.5 million. Then Palm suggests, "If you pay up, Debo, I'll be the bait for everyone," making Debo's eyes go wide with confusion as he shouts for an explanation, only for the adventurer leader to quickly scold him for being too cocky and explain that this boss can't be lured easily, so relying on slave tricks won't work, because if you fail to draw its attention, everyone dies since slaves just get in the way in high-level portals. He points directly at Debo and sneers. What hope do a two-circle adventurer and a slave with no awakened power have? Annoyed by the guy's big talk, Debo thinks, this jerk is looking for a fight, and I don't want to be the bait either, while Palm questions his plan and clarifies that their group includes a mix of powerful and weaker adventurers, leaving Debo shocked as the adventure leader asks if they really only have one or two strong ones, just before another voice cuts and say they can pay if they agree to act as bait, even if they don't have all the cash right now. Palm replies, "That's fine. Pay me when we escape, and if we don't, just think of it as your sacrifice," but he insists on one condition. Everyone gathered there had to say yes. Palm shouts, "Decide now," while a terrifying mushroom boss feasts on fallen heroes right next to the escape portal. A vicious strike hits the monster straight in the face. As soon as the boss spots them, Palm orders Debo to move, but Debo whines about it. Then the boss spins around with terrifying speed and scares Debo, so much that he yells for everyone to run and open the portal before the bait is gone, and the whole group sprints toward the escape. Debo bumps into a gang of tiny monsters that suddenly jump out to fight him. He shouts that they aren't so easy to kill, quickly orders the monsters to leave, and then slashes with a powerful explosion that wipes them all out. But the mushroom boss suddenly appears right behind him, ready to fight. From afar, Palm shoots a fire arrow to stop the smaller monsters from moving forward. Then he fires another arrow straight at the boss, hitting him one more time. Debo stands in front of Palm and shouts that the monster is closing in. So Palm screams for him to jump, and they both make a crazy leap off the cliff. The huge beast doesn't hesitate and leaps after them with terrifying speed. While floating in the air, Debo spins to face the monster and give it the finger. Palm strike lands squarely on the boss, sending a massive explosion upward as the three of them fall through the air. As they keep falling, they plunge straight down toward the river rushing between the cliffs below. Debo crawls out of the water, swearing that that cursed mushroom nearly got him killed. Then he spins around to ask what that thing's deal is. As Palm wrings out his clothes and bluntly says, "That's the boss, and they need to prepare better if they want to kill the beast," Debo just stands there watching in silence. He can't believe they're really going to kill the monster, but Debo screams that the bait part is over and they're supposed to be leaving, especially since the fire arrows didn't even work. But Palm explains that the situation has shifted because the competition is gone, leaving them as free targets who will even take a bonus. Then he asks, "What's the problem? Are you going to back out of the contract?" Debo instantly says no, but insists that Palm still owes him a bonus. Palm nods in agreement. Then Debo asks how they can kill the creature since neither close fighting nor shooting has worked, and he refuses to risk his life. He insists, "Is there at least some way?" While outside, Abby's and Rockin keep their eyes on the portal. The adventurers emerge to question if a portal for 40 people could have been that fast, only for Abby's to learn the chilling truth. They failed. The man says that Dolan's team was wiped out and Palm is still inside, waiting to draw them out. The adventurer's voice breaks with a heavy sigh, admitting that his small group cannot defeat the portal boss. Abby just looks at him without saying a word. The woman claims the boss was a poisonous mushroom of madness with no solution, but Abby stops her, calling her out for running away with her tail between her legs. Abby starts to walk away, but the adventurer stops him right then. She insists they must still be alive because the group hasn't appeared yet and the portal is still open. But Abby's finally draws a line because they won't survive, especially since the adventurer just admitted that the boss is a fearsome, poisonous mushroom of madness. He then declares that if they want to wait, they can wait alone because he doesn't have time for it and leaves, calling them damn useless. And Abby's concludes that they just had bad luck before he continues, stating that it's impossible for even a two-circle mage to think of killing a poisonous mushroom, and that mediocre adventurers are of no use to him. Once you step through the portal, everything changes and the rules are completely different. Palm knows he needs someone who can turn the impossible into reality, and he fits that role perfectly while getting his team ready for the fight. Then he shouts, "The hunt begins," and the best way to take down the boss is to stay back and strike from afar with powerful long-range attacks. After all, this beast is quicker and tougher than the rest, and on top of that, it even spits poison. Palm readies his strike, whispering to himself that if he uses his mind to make the arrow spin, its power will explode. The combined energy projectile zooms through the air at lightning speed, carving a sharp path as it goes. It's a unique skill he invented back when he came up with a bullet that could make the impossible happen. Palm unleashes his technique, firing off the move he calls revolver. The attack smashes straight into the monster right on its head. That energy keeps cutting right through the creature. Palm watches closely to see if his hit landed. A second blast of energy tears the tree apart with terrifying force. Even so, the monster stands tall while Palm reads the fight, realizing he missed the head where the core lies. Suddenly, another blast tears into the creature's upper body. Palm finds using the revolver while moving tough mainly because it heats up too fast. He readies another strike, urging himself to end this before the boss recovers. The monster moves forward toward them once more. All of a sudden, the creature halted in its tracks, looking completely confused. Palm yells, "Now's the time," and Debo grabs the rope, pulling with every ounce of strength he has. The rope catches the monster's legs, causing it to trip and fall forward. The creature then faceplants right into the mud. The monster slowly lifts itself up from the ground. Standing atop the cliff, Palm keeps a watchful eye on the creature below. The monster spins to face Debo, calls out that the monster is a filthy mushroom, and Debo swings his axe to strike it. He keeps striking the monster with fresh attacks. The hit cuts the beast, and it gurgles out gas from its mouth. Debo faced the monster and dared it to play, saying, "Why not have fun while the air is still fresh?" Palm figures out the move, wondering if that really is the monster's actual head. He thanks them for showing him and is already holding what looks like a flare. Debo instantly caught on that the whole earlier attack was just a bluff because that light was a flare. As Palm stands on the cliff's edge, he fires his revolver, and a beam of pure energy slices right through the creature's shadow. The strike crashes into the ground, triggering a massive explosion that blasts an unbelievable cloud of gas out of the monster's body. Debo grumbled, still annoyed that the guy was such a pain until the very end. Then he gets yanked backward by a rope, pulling him to safety just as the blast goes off. He stumbles to his feet and admits he thought he'd die, only for the monster's poison to fill the air, while Debo still wonders if it's truly over until Palm confirms it is and tells him he did well, promising to grab the mana stone once the poison fades but failing to see the creature creeping up on them. Palm twists to face the danger just as the poison fades from the monster's body. Then, a tiny ball of energy pops out from where the creature used to be. Amidst all the desperate events unfolding around him, Debo manages to break into a smile. Back at the office, Raken bursts out laughing and rushes to Abby's, asking, "Did you come back with nothing?" before adding that his colleague's temper hasn't changed a bit. Abby's apologizes for the mess and admits they should have left the Cygnus Knights to handle it. Then a knock at the door makes Abby's yell at the visitor to scram, since he's already told everyone not to bother him. The door swings open without warning, and a voice shouts, "I'm coming in," making Abby snap. "Who the hell is that?" as he spins around to catch a glimpse of the stranger. Standing in the doorway is Palm, who bluntly announces, "I'm back," causing Rockin to crack a smile and declare, "This is going to get interesting," as he turns to Abbas to ask what's happening and if someone has finally climbed out of their grave. He introduces himself to Palm right away, proving the rumors about his amazing survival skills are true, and though Palm accepts the compliment with cool thanks, Rockin says he loves polite people and asks just one question. Then he quietly asks if Palm can show that same skill again at the 100-man gate, and Palm answers honestly that it's a tough question, leaving Rockin just staring in silence. A boss quickly snaps at Palm, asking if that is how one speaks to Mr. Rakin, and reminding the kid that he cannot just pick his missions because he still owes him. Rockin grins and jokes. If it's tough, it's not impossible, while Palm, who never plays games, immediately decides to swap the question. He looks up, locks eyes with Rockin, and asks point blank, "What do you want?" While in a tavern, Debo spits out his drink. He shouts in protest, calling out that 5 million Mios each is insane, which adds up to a staggering 10 million for the two of them. Palm turns to him and offers a sorry apology. I wonder if Palm isn't getting too greedy, since they won't simply walk away from the deal on their very first big mission. Palm wipes his face and shrugs, saying it's not his problem, and the choice is theirs to make. Worried, his companion warns that if things go wrong, Abby's will banish them both. Then he spots someone moving closer. The adventurer leader speaks, plainly while Palm stays cool, unlike those who feel like they are dying. Debo jumps up, furious, and dares him to fight, asking if that's how someone thanks you for saving their life. But the man's friend quickly bows to say sorry. Ibu also apologizes, admitting he misjudged them, and is ashamed as an adventurer. The other man slides a bag of money across the table, saying everyone else pitched an extra just to say thank you, but Debo shakes his head and won't take it. Palm says again that they agreed on 1.5 million mesos, so he did only the job he was paid for, and they don't need to thank him. And he warns, don't get this wrong, so Abaru and his friend quickly exchange worried glances, sensing something is up. Debo grips the money bag, mutters that he was carried away for nothing, and then begins counting it up. Palm sits at the bar and asks Abaru for his companion's name, but Abaru challenges him to prove he's ready for the job he was hired to do. In the office, Abby screams that he can't do it. He argues with Rockin that offering 10 million mesos to a low-level adventurer would set a terrible example. Abby's warns that Palm might just be probing around, so it's wiser to call him back to sort out the payment details. Rockin just asks, "You really think that?" Abby's replied with a confident grin that he wouldn't be surprised if he asked for twice that amount of cash. Rockin hands over the paper and says, "Read this." Abby's reads the paper and realizes the Palm Group is only being sent to represent the GAFA Merchant Union, and he wonders if just 2 people can make a difference there. He keeps reading, reacts with shock, and asks if it's true, to which Rakin replies that he paid a high price for the news and would be in deep trouble if it weren't. The paper shows the name Dark Lord Jin, and Abby's realizes the truth behind it means there is a danger that is truly impossible to believe. Rockin snatched a pen, warned that there was no time to lose, and thrust the tip forward to say the war had already begun. Suddenly, the view shifts to show the gate, now standing before a massive encampment. Groups of adventurers sit around their campfires, holding their breath in tense silence. The young adventurer gasped, not expecting them to agree to those terms. Palm tries to tell the guy to calm down and stay focused, but Debo just fires back that he's got plenty of adventure experience now. With the Merchant Union's symbol proudly displayed on his cloak, he is showing off his honor. While other campers brace themselves in the heavy air, Palm notices the tension and Debo spots a stranger among them. An adventurer named Sheldon from the Union walks up and asks if you are from the Gaffer Merchant Union. Palm introduces himself as a lowly C-rank adventurer, leaving Sheldon shocked since he thought only the 2 elite circle adventurers were allowed to enter. Still totally confused, the man can't figure out how a C-ranker managed to get into the portal. It just makes no sense at all. A blonde woman walks up to the group and asks the guy to let them have some room. She insists she has important business to take care of with that person. Sheldon steps back, annoyed that he wasted his time, as the woman and her group walk closer to Palm. Back in the past, Palm watches a scene play out inside an office. While he sits at the office table wondering why he has to do this, a woman tells him to just follow orders and asks why he keeps asking so many questions. The blonde woman tells them that the Gaffer Merchant Union will team up with the Cygnus Knight Order right here at this gate. After learning from Empress Cygnus, the group's mightiest member became obsessed with that strange gate. Abuz explains that since the gate quota is full, they're teaming up with the Knights, and even though they're just trainees, their chances of success are still very good. He points out that there might be hidden reasons they came to this gate, but since the deal isn't bad, they've decided to work together. Palm knows cooperation will make it manageable, but he doubts it will come without a few bumps in the road. But Abby's knows something feels wrong, a scent that just doesn't smell right. Back at camp, the woman introduces herself as Kiri, the leader of the Cygnus rookies, warns him not to mistake them for equals, and demands he follow orders in silence, which instantly makes Debo furious. Kiri asks Palm if only he and she were sent by the Gaffer Merchant Union, and he nods, confirming that it looks like it. She can't help but wonder if Gaffer is treating this whole thing too lightly. Meanwhile, the Crocus group from the Dig Merchant Union gets ready for their mission, while the Cubal squad from the Marina Merchant Union shows off their power to make themselves known. Debo sensed the air grow heavy and noted that the Merchant Union's elite had completely changed the vibe. Suddenly, a new group's arrival grabs everyone's attention with a shocking crash. It's the three Natasha sisters who belong to the Goldrich Merchant Union. One of the three Natasha sisters steps ahead, proudly showing off the Goldrich Merchant Union's badge, while her mighty presence shines out for everyone to see. Kiri watches the trio and calls them out as just a show, full of arrogance. A red-haired man steps forward and gets ready to talk to everyone there. He steps up and tells everyone his name is Longro, the invasion guard there to watch over the gate as everyone leaves. Longro takes a breath and speaks the rules one last time, just to be sure everyone remembers, even though they already know them. Longro makes it clear that the legendary item belongs to the merchant unions, not the finder, but promises that everyone will get paid exactly as agreed with no exceptions. He warns the group that if anyone is caught stealing, they won't just face his B-rank adventurer team, because the consequences will be far worse. Debo spots a mark on one of the men's arms and asks if it means 5 circles, then looks around wondering if the whole group has reached that unbelievable level of power. After giving his final warning, Longro steps aside and lets everyone pass through the gate. Kiri spins around to facepalm and shouts that she'll lead the way, so he better follow her. She shouts, "We'll win," while DBO whispers to himself, wondering if KR has a secret deal and if Palm really needs to team up with someone like him. Palm stares straight ahead and whispers, "It's finally begun," realizing that the number 100 at the entrance marks a gate he never faced before, one he must conquer at all costs. Palm says it all begins here, while Debo complains he won't help anyone who lags behind, not in a million years. The adventurer dashes forward and shouts for everyone to follow him. Debo questions the strange environment and asks why the grass is so tall, while Kiri warns him to stop fooling around, keep up with the group, and asks if he thinks this is a field trip as he watches others pull ahead, feels frustrated by the treatment, and then spots something up ahead, fallen palms. Debo steps up to the fallen man and asks what he's doing, right before a heavy object crashes down onto the ground with a violent thud. One man spins around, sees the chaos, and spots the other group moving toward him. He spots the danger and shouts that it's 1,000 ribbon hogs charging right at them. Kiri shouts for everyone to scatter because the rest of the groups haven't shown up yet. One man asks, who dared to lure danger right to the portal entrance, while another leader splits his team, sending the El Nido merchants one way and marching with his own group the other. The monsters tear their way through everything in their path. Kiri plans to trap the monsters in a tight spot, but one of her men steps in to warn her about a problem first. She gasps in shock when she learns that the Gaffer merchant crew has simply disappeared. Debo told everyone they could finally relax and asked Palm how he knew the ribbon hogs would get angry, to which Palm calmly replied that he had seen many herds of wild beasts travel across these same plains before. The info sheet warns that ribbon hogs are 2-meter-tall monsters with violent temperaments that roam the land in massive packs numbering in the hundreds or even thousands. He insists the merchant groups could fight the creatures, but they'd likely steer clear to keep their energy. Since nobody knows what monster is waiting in the shadows, he says you can't finish the portal just by killing ribbon hogs. Palm remembers how the last attack on the Sleepywood Gate failed completely, leaving every adventurer dead. Debo stepped closer and asks what he's thinking about so hard, but right then a rope catches Palm's foot and makes him look down instantly. Next, a giant log trap springs, sending both of them flying into the air while Debo screams, "What's going on?" as the structure shows its terrifying size, catching Debo in its deadly jaws while he wonders who could have built such a monster. A sword slices through the trap's rope, freeing a bald man who lands on the ground. With one mighty smash, he sends a wooden building crashing down, proving just how strong he really is. The newcomer scoffs that the trap is childish, only for his friend to warn that it might be the last one left, while the bald man Babel urges Crocus to stay sharp. Crocus stood silent with his arms crossed. He points out that the trap pattern copies human tricks, proving their enemies are smart. He realizes they are tough ogre monsters, just as scary as the big red portal boss. Crocus admits the portal is incredibly dangerous, noting that anyone less powerful than him nearby would already be dead. He grabs the chance, shouts, "Follow me," and tells his buddy to stay sharp and leave nothing behind. Crocus looks back and finds his friend knocked out. Right at that same moment, 2 more allies are taken out in a single shot. With no hope left, another person rushes in to finish the work and defeats Crocus. A man walks in and yells at him for acting like he knew everything. He lays out their plan, revealing how those ribbon pigs were meant to draw everyone into the portal while they slipped past unnoticed. Perched on the rock, a friend nods in agreement that the plan works, signaling it's the perfect moment to strike. The same guy finds everything annoying and complains under his breath. As he stands up, he warns the Natasha sisters that time is almost up, so it's time to go. The three Natasha sisters hold their breath and freeze in place, terrified by what they see. The old man tells them they can't move because his magic will keep them stuck for 30 minutes. She asks why he's doing this, and he's impressed that she can still speak despite his magic, which is exactly what you'd expect from an area. He decides to take out the most dangerous member of the group first, declaring that she is his top priority. The other two sisters watch the whole thing unfold. Crouching beside the warrior's fallen form, he murmurs that it's a hard question to answer, then suddenly looks up and glares at the group. He taps his staff at them with a grin, saying this should make things clearer, then announces that all their efforts are meant for the Dark Mage Lord while one of the sisters watches him shoot a fire arrow into the air. The attack strikes her right in the center. Her body goes down, but he doesn't even flinch. He soon remarks that it feels like it will never end. He shuts his eyes and whispers that he only needed a brief rest. In a memory from the past, a lord shouts for William, and the man steps right up to him. The lord tells them they've waited in the dark too long, letting their strength grow just for this perfect moment. He shouts that this is the big moment where all their hard work finally pays off. William vows to never let his master down, and as a solemn reminder of this promise, his master gives him a feather with the warning that there is no room for failure. Back in the present, William remarks that even after everything, he can't use half his power. He steps back, saying he can't do anything, and then starts to wonder if he needs to take this situation more seriously. A huge army of giant ogres stands watch over the massive wooden fortress while the night hides them. Crouching behind a tree, Debo is blown away by what he sees and shouts, "What the heck is this?" before asking if every monster there is a boss, only for Palm to quickly correct him and remind him that there is just one. Palm tells us that ogres are already mighty strong, but they become even scarier when they steal weapons and gear from adventurers they've killed. Debo's breath hitches in his throat as the terrifying truth hits him. The stolen weapons could unleash the monster's deadly powers. He knows they'll have to fight an entire army all by themselves, but he insists they regroup with Kiri, and when Palm asks why he didn't want to leave her before, he mocks Debo for thinking they can't beat an army. They were strolling down a quiet forest trail until two giant ogres suddenly jumped out from the trees. Palm pushes Debo right into the ogres, making him drop everything he was holding. Debo immediately complains, saying that was on purpose, and insists he never asked to fight alone. Debo lunges at a monster strike, but the beast turns the fight around and punches him straight in the face. Debo barely blocks the axe blow with its handle, and the angry ogre roars back, yelling at him to stop screaming and insulting him for being so loud. Debo swings his axe for the final strike and shouts, "You're finished, you monster," but the giant dodges with surprising speed and leaps away. Debo finally sees what's happening and swings his axe in midair to mercilessly cut off the monster's only way out. He throws every ounce of strength he has into holding the beast down and yells in frustration, "Damn it, why won't this thing just die already?" But the creature just bites the blade, and Debo freezes, staring at the shocking attack. Debo is so surprised he jumps up and brings a huge smash down on the second ogre. The second monster fell dead to the ground, finally giving up all fight. Debo turns to Palm and says, "I thought you were going to lend a hand, man," only for Palm to reply that now Debo knows monsters aren't invincible, which just makes him doubt the whole mission even more. Suddenly, Debo whips his head around as something odd catches his eye. He steps into the forest and sees dead knights lying everywhere like trash, making him ask what could possibly be wrong, only for Debo to realize they belong to the Cygnus Knights, leaving him to wonder what happened until he notices one of them is still breathing right there on the ground. Debo grabs the phone, holds it up, and points directly at the only person who made it. Palm sees the injured man resting by the tree and wonders if he is truly alive, then steps forward to ask the knight what happened, wanting to know if he was attacked by an ogre, but the knight struggles to speak and insists it wasn't an ogre, but an assassin instead. While Abby sits in a room, he stares at the twisted mess he's in. He decides it's all nonsense and scrambles to sort out his messy thoughts. Assassins crash through portals to beat up adventurers, and the smart money says all the proof disappears the moment they go through. Abby's knows this fight would leave them drained and still get them noticed by everyone outside. He figured that a merchant group would never risk such a dangerous gamble, so he suspects some other force is pulling the strings to gain something. Back in the forest, Debo turns to Palm and calls him boss. Kiri whispers that it's been a long time since she last saw that girl. The wounded knight slams the ground in fury and shouts, "Why would Lady Kiri do this? Is there a traitor among us?" While Palm, Equally confused, adds, she's one of Cygnus Knights, so why would she be an assassin? Showing he can't believe it either. Debo grudgingly admitted it was a bitter pill to swallow, realizing her orders at the portal entrance were now just part of a sneaky trap. The knight pauses to catch his breath and admits that right before he was done, she finally told him who she really was. She proudly announced her loyalty to the scary black mage, making it perfectly clear what dark plan she had in mind. Debo gasped at the name, staring wide-eyed and whispering, "Black mage? Did I just hear that right?" An old story jumps into his head. 800 years ago, a powerful and evil sorcerer called the Black Mage once tried to destroy the whole world. 6 heroes joined their strength to face a huge battle and finally trapped him and his dark followers forever. As the Black Mage's army fell into total chaos, the allied forces moved forward without mercy and slaughtered every one of his followers. Debo remarked, "Any citizen of Maple World would know that, man," and concluded it was impossible for her to be a follower. Palm grabs the team and races off, saying there's no time to worry about ogres anymore. They need to find her right now. He asks the knight, "Are you coming with us?" and warns, "Get ready for a beatdown when we find her." But the knight instantly replies, "That's exactly what I want," and accepts without hesitation. Meanwhile, Kiri flies low and races across the rocky ground. She steps into an open space and sees William, who greets her calmly, saying, "I was waiting for you, Lady Curry." Next to him, a white-haired woman stayed quiet and watched as William shouted for Lady Kiri. William figures out that she cared for the ribbon pigs, so he declares the plan is ready to go now that everyone is apart, then asks if she got the gift they sent, and tries to make her react, but Kiri stays totally quiet. Standing tall with her sword, she demands to know who these people are while Debo tends to the injured knight in the woods who promises she'll find her soon. The knight grips a dagger and shouts, "This is great," while Kiri steps forward to clash blades with an assassin. William sits in the stands and shouts his approval for the amazing job the Cygnus Knight's captain did in the fight. He wonders how long she can keep fighting as he watches every move she makes. Kiri readies her strike and shouts out that the sun is rising. An assassin jumps at her shouting that it is time to die, but Kiri fires her solar blast and hurls the attacker backward. She commands, "Tell me your reason if you do not wish to die right here," at her. Kiri stood her ground while an irritated William screamed at his men to kill her, only for a group of assassins to charge at her shouting die, before she kept fighting and then saw someone unexpectedly take down one of her attackers. William's jaw dropped as he stared at the sight before him. Kiri spins around to face her next opponent. Meanwhile, Debo stays with his back turned to the scene. He helps a wounded knight promise that the boss will find him soon, but the knight pulls out a dagger, tells Debo to give his regards to Kiri, and then loses his hand right there. After being thrown to the ground, the knight asks what's happening while Palm keeps a sharp eye on him, clutching his injured hand. Debo turns to Palm and asks, "What's happening?" To which Palm calmly replies that it was exactly what he suspected. He glares at the knight lying on the ground, points at him, and says, "Your lie was lame," but when the knight apologizes and tries to explain, Palm refuses to trust him and walks away. From a distance, William watches Debo and Kiri together and thinks the scene is weird. He stares at the unwelcome guest, trying to guess what game they are playing. Then he hears his friend recognize the boy from Gaffer's Merchant Union, and William calmly replies, "I already know," before stepping up to Piton and asking, "You failed, was giving you a second chance a mistake? Or did you just lose, Kiri?" Kiri stares them down and remarks that since they look so strong, it's finally time for the elite to step in. The Williams group surges forward with a fierce attack, springing into action. Kiri warns Debo about a dangerous group, and while Debo agrees and calls them perverts, Kiri asks for clarification just as William orders his men to end the fight quickly, with Kiri telling Debo he can take one of them down, but Debo's bold charge against the man is stopped when Sheldon blocks his axe mid-swing. He gets ready to strike and shouts that the fight is over, but an incoming shot stops him just as he turns to find out who fired it. An enemy hurls a crossbow bolt that pins him down. Suddenly an assassin strikes him from behind, and he immediately screams curses at both of them, calling them traitors. Debo is knocked off his feet when hit head-on by a stronger charge. Debo kneels down and says the cut wasn't deep enough. The killer steps closer, whispers that he will end your pain this very second, and then springs into the air to strike. Kiri blocks the attack at the last moment and yells at her friend, "What are you thinking?" while one attacker freezes in shock and Debo steps out silently behind him. Debo tells Curry to relax and explains that he was just playing a prank on the enemy. He swings his axe at the man, knocking him backward until he flies through the air. As another opponent calls him a bastard, Debo steps forward to meet the rushing charge. He slips away from the strike right before it hits and keeps his eyes locked on the fight. Debo unleashes his explosive slash and cuts the enemy down with a single, swift strike. One knight watches the battle and asks, how can he be so strong? While the same knight shakes his head, clearly disappointed in how his fallen friend performed. Kiri hits Sheldon hard enough to throw him to the ground and stand her ground with a single strike. She glares at him and snaps, is this what you call elite? While the knight watches the mess, silently cursing the whole situation. William closes his eyes, takes a big breath, and gets ready to step into the fight. He grips his staff and snaps, you've wasted enough of my time, just as Debo looks up to dodge a flying fire arrow. A huge arrow shoots straight at him, cutting through the air. He realizes the attack is coming faster than the boss's, so he narrows his eyes. The arrow hits the ground and sends a huge explosion flying. William laughs and claims his fire arrow is unstoppable and impossible to dodge, but Palm jumps through the flames to land right before Debo. William stares him down and shouts, who the hell are you? While Palm points a finger at them and takes a step forward. Palm tells them to hold their breath and warns that other guests are arriving, as a colossal beast bursts from the trees and charges straight at William's group. The two men gasp and scramble backward as the monster suddenly leaps out at them. A whole herd of ribbon pigs rushes in and swarms the field. William stood frozen, staring at the giant beast's lifeless body after the fight. He thought that thing was a huge bother, and the other jerks just threw it at the squad and ran away. Gerald walked right up to Sir William and said he was sorry right away. Then one of his men shouted that he was just about to wrap up everything there. William declared there was no time to regroup, so the order was simple. They had to charge right after them. He felt the situation was becoming a real headache, because Palm looked like a tough nut to crack. William recalled that his man had warned him about Palm, but William had told him not to worry since he had taken care of the troublemaker all on his own. William stood tall in the portal, boasting with a big grin that no one could ever be stronger than him, because he was absolutely convinced he was the toughest. Kiri asked if Palm saw the enemies clearly before they vanished, but Palm warned her that those bad guys wouldn't be easy to kill. Debo wondered why Palm didn't wipe out those enemies sooner, when he had the perfect shot. Debo had finally cracked Palm's secret move, only to be shocked to find out the enemy was actually stronger than he thought. Palm remembered the enemy's fire arrow, and suddenly the past flashed before his eyes. He admitted that his own fire arrow barely shifted the attack's path and failed to even hurt him. Debo refused to believe it, insisting that no one could be stronger than the boss and telling Palm to stop messing around. Debo asked if they had really just bolted, and Palm confirmed it. Palm showed Debo a ring, but Debo just stared, confused about what was going on. He showed that the circle on his arm had finally reached its limit, and that scared him a lot. Palm figured that standing at the top of the second circle meant they had to match or even outpower their enemy. But the guy's magic held a secret twist that somehow made his own strength grow, leaving Palm completely baffled. Debo couldn't believe it, thinking this guy had to be the strongest adventurer in the portal. Debo wanted to use the same trick on the ogres, but Palm shut it down right away, warning that it could turn back on them. Palm wondered if Debo truly realized how deep they were in trouble and tried hard to help him see the danger. Kiri cut him off, warning that knowing about the dark mage hiding among the knights could change everything for the future. She pushed him ahead outside first and tried to lead the way. Kiri proposed they stop trying to clear the portal and shared her worries. Palm just said it was no use, which left the other two totally puzzled. Kiri wondered if he still cared about such a tiny reward and pointed out that he used to be a slave. Palm asked what would come next after they warned everyone, noting that the followers had been hiding for hundreds of years. He warned that exposing them would only cut off a branch, for they'd just hide once more and become parasites. Kiri clenched her teeth in pure frustration. Palm held her back and made it clear that plan wouldn't work. Kiri pressed him, asking what they should do since they were being chased and needed to escape, but Palm calmly replied that they had to warn someone, finishing his thought by revealing who the real hunters actually were. Sheldon raced through the forest, smashing through the trees at breakneck speed. He urged them to find the creatures quickly, or they'd slip through the portal and put their bug necks in danger. Then, Debo was suddenly there, standing right in front of Sheldon. Debo grinned and asked, "What's up?" as his axe smashed into Sheldon's weapon, knocking the knight backward. Debo shouted that Sheldon was a fool for trying to find them and vowed to kill him this time. Palm caught the attack, tossed the man away, and Sheldon shouted out Anders's name. Kiri tore herself loose from the vines that had trapped her. Debo asked Sheldon if he thought he could get distracted in the middle of a fight just as an enemy advanced with a dagger, screaming for his life. Debo slipped out of the way using only his quickness. Sheldon yelled, "What is he doing?" as Debo landed a punch on an enemy and knocked Sheldon down in the chaos. He struck his opponent right in the face with a powerful blow. The archer fired her crossbow across the field, locking her sights on a distant enemy. Kiri dashed right past her, and the archer paused to wonder what was happening. Kiri stepped in to stop his sister from striking another and blocked their attack. Kir's sword met the clash of her foes. They locked swords in a deadlock, pushing hard against one another. Kiri warned her not to look away because she was sick of how things were going, while nearby William noted that the fight seemed to have started but still wondered about one person. He saw a shadowy figure far away and asked if they were waiting for him. Suddenly, the figure appeared as Palm, staff in hand. William knew it was time to begin, so he and his partner both readied their weapons right there. William grinned and waved his hand, bringing a fiery arrow into existence. Palm lifted his focus and readied his own fire arrow to shoot back. 2 fire arrows crashed into each other, creating a massive boom that knocked Palm flying backward. William watched as his opponent fired another flaming arrow straight at him. He marveled at the guy's amazing skill and decided to join the attack right away. The 2 blasts collided in the middle and caused another explosion. Palm threw up his arm to take the hit and protect himself from the blow. William carved a huge wooden spike and threw it straight at his enemy. Palm just stared at the flying rock and realized it was nothing more than a simple stone. William snatched the staff right away and challenged Palm. "Is that all you have?" As Palm spun his weapon and readied another fiery arrow. The strike came straight at Palm's head, but he stopped it with his own staff. William's eyes went wide in shock that Palm had dodged the hit, admitting the result was a surprise and wondering how his opponent could possibly block such a powerful strike. William asked the guy how he did that, but got no reply since Palm stayed completely quiet. William let out a short sigh and admitted that talking in the middle of a fight just wasn't possible. He made up his mind to find out the truth and then rushed ahead. Palm stood firm and faced the incoming attack without backing down. He fired his gun, sending a magical swirl into the air. William asked, "What is that?" and watched how it worked. He saw that Palm was using telekinesis to spin the arrow like a drill, boring straight through his magic. William said he had never seen anything like that and accidentally let a comment slip. The magic smashed together in a huge blast that tore open a deep hole right between them. William finally realized his rival was using mind control to boost their power, so he quickly weighed his options. He stood on the other side of the crater and watched Palm, a man who would be called a genius. William smirked and showed that this was exactly the kind of thing he hated most. William beckoned him to enjoy a bit more fun and challenged him to reveal just how much he could do. William dropped his act and made it clear he was through playing games. He shot a fire arrow right at him and let the attack loose. Palm quickly aimed his own pistol to meet the shot head-on. The hit knocked him over and blew up into a huge explosion. William smirked and muttered, "Finally," then checked if the guy had used his 2 shots by pointing to the ring on his finger. William blew out a deadly cloud of poison mist. The attack slammed right into Palm, burying him entirely. The explosion burst outward, swallowing up everything nearby. The deadly smoke slowly drifted through the trees until it was no longer dangerous. William told how he made his foe's fire arrows cool down and then shared his secret plan. He confidently smirked, claiming Palm wouldn't move for another 30 minutes. With his fire arrow still cooling down, William switched to his dagger to end the fight. He stepped forward and shouted that this was his favorite part because he just couldn't wait anymore. William pictured the desperate face his opponent would make and imagined the whole scene. Palm stared right back at him without a single sign of reaction. He squeezed his fist hard, poured every bit of his will into it, and drove a straight punch right into William's face. The force knocked him soaring through the air. Meanwhile, far away from the fight, Ibu couldn't stop wondering how Palm pulled off that move. Inside a noisy tavern, Ibaru offered to buy a round of drinks for everyone, but only if they told him how they survived the poisonous mushroom of madness. Debo laughed and said it was useless to try, because you can't just want to do something like Palm did when he used his mind to pull all the poison away, even when things looked hopeless. Ibu wondered if that wasn't cheating, and Debo agreed, saying his boss's amazing skills were just a total cheat before shrugging it off. Back in the fight, William began to choke on the poison. Palm then socked him right in the jaw. A storm of punches hammered the knight until Palm landed a final hit that sent him flying into a tree. Palm made his move, locking eyes with William, who was frozen to the tree and barely able to react. Then his fire arrow struck its target dead on, just like that. William crawls across the dusty floor, completely crushed by defeat. But he gives one final burst of strength toward Palm and throws in a last, desperate strike. Palm squints his eyes. He sees that even though William is acting crazy, he is actually up to something. Then Palm sees the whole plan, and since the poison failed, Williams is going to try one more way to get his people back. Palm shifts his footing and chooses the perfect moment to strike, charging up a fiery blast that he sends careening toward the fallen staff to reclaim his weapon. The explosion crashes into William with everything it has, and he is instantly swallowed by the blast. Suddenly, William pulls out a glowing orb and promises to shatter Palm into pieces. A huge wave of fire sweeps through the whole forest, and the power is truly amazing. Palm slams the floor, admitting he let his guard down. He wasn't ready for his opponent to pull out a fiery surprise, realizing it was a blunder he'd never make again. Palm knows he's lost his advantage as a storm of fireballs crashes toward him. From far away, Debo watches the explosion unfold. He twists around to face Sheldon, who he's still gripping by the neck, and shouts out to his boss. Meanwhile, Kiri knocks out her opponent with one powerful blow, showing off her strength. She snaps at Debo to stop playing around and finish the job because Sheldon's opponent is too strong, but Debo says he was already planning to do that, right as a crossbow bolt suddenly shoots through Sheldon from behind. A massive crowd of green ogres lunges right at them. Kiri tries to calm herself down, focus on the task, and end this quickly, but Debo warns her not to underestimate the threat, especially after spotting a strange-looking ogre sitting on a throne right in the middle of them. Will wonders if that scumbag Palm is finally gone while he stands right in the middle of the fire. He spews a mouthful of blood onto the floor and struggles to catch his breath. William admits the guy wasn't bad and wishes he'd asked his name sooner. Suddenly, a voice behind him says Palm, and William whirls around to stare in shock at the figure. Palm warns William that his name will be the last one heard, only for William to call him a cockroach and dismiss the bluff. An admission Palm accepts by revealing a stone and claiming it's nearly impossible to beat him with just 2 circles. William gazes at the object in front of him and realizes it is a mono stone. He calls Palm a crazy bastard and asks if absorbing the stone is his last hope to level up, only for Palm to call him an idiot and explain that mana alone won't do it, because what he really needs is experience and knowledge, leaving William completely confused. Suddenly, a glowing circle appears and power swirls around him, radiating an intense and dangerous energy. Palm tells William not to worry, saying he already has enough, but William calls it just another bluff and charges at him. Palm just stands his ground while watching the attack come closer, then suddenly shoots a fire arrow into the air. The strike grows into a massive explosion, bursting with power. William's eyes go wide in shock as he recognizes the flame orb, and with his other hand, he combines the attack with his telekinesis to palm charge the shot even more before the spiraling projectile tears through the air with fury toward him. William gets hit straight on and spits blood. As the fire swallows him whole, he screams out the name of Palm. Amidst the roaring flames, Palm watches his burning opponent with a calm face before casually muttering that he forgot to ask the man's name. While in the forest, the wounded Kiri sits on the ground as a horde of goblins rushes toward them. Debo holds Kiri close while she warns that things are getting complicated, and he grabs his weapon, glaring at the enemies and ready to fight. Debo dashes in and whacks each monster, counting off 16th and 17th. Kiri couldn't figure out how he was able to defeat those enemies so easily. She's confused about what's happening, but he calmly shows he can spot their moves, shifts his stance to knock down another creature, and reminds us that Debo has already reached 18. He then throws his full strength into a mighty hit against the goblin, landing the blow to deal huge damage. Kiri stares, trying to figure out what strange thing she is seeing. The goblin shaman pulls out an orbital flame, leaving Kiri totally stunned as she wonders how a monster could wield such power. Hiding in the dark, she groans in frustration at the monster's ability to use items, wondering if they should stay hidden until they find Palm and praying he is still alive. Then suddenly, a horde of goblins charges at her and Debo. Kiri swings her sword up to block a monster's attack. She strikes back at the goblin, but the force of the clash sends Debo flying. Kiri grabs her partner and cries out that she won't leave him, but he insists he can handle the enemies one at a time just as a huge explosion blasts them with incredible force. Suddenly, a goblin shaman pops into view and shouts, "He won't fight you!" right before another attack flies their way. As the energy sphere crashes down, it bursts into a terrifying wave of power that shakes everything around it. A goblin lunges forward with a creepy grin, closing in on you. 2 shapes burst from the dust, leaving the big beast completely baffled. Palm rises from the smoke, and the cavalry is finally here. Kiri stays on the ground, turns around, and stares at him. Palm drops his head for a heartbeat before pulling in a long, deep breath. He twirls his spear in a fast circle, ready to strike as the moment is almost here. From above, the shaman watches the horde of goblins charge at the newcomer and quickly reacts. The shaman sneaks up and hits his own goblin from behind, leaving everyone shocked by his crazy move. Kiri stares in disbelief as he unleashes his full power on the goblin shaman, suddenly wondering if he truly belongs to the first circle. Debo also readies his axe for the charge. He launches his attack at the monster who is going full tilt. The blow sweeps straight across the battlefield, but the attack is pushed back, sending both Debo and Kiri flying backward in a burst of raw power. The wounded goblin shaman gasps for air. He holds his staff high as a dark spell begins to form around it. Palm steps in front of Kiri to block the way, shouting, "Get back, Kiri. I got this now," just as the monster fires a massive blast of energy. Just as the danger gets closer, the attack is stopped right in the air. The shaman stands frozen, staring at the scene with no idea of what is happening, completely stunned. In a split second, a terrible strike tears him in two. Kiri stared at the scene, completely stunned by what had just happened. Palm chimes in with a grin. "Guess I wasn't too late after all," while a boss grumbles about the 4-day silence and decides he's done taking on defense missions. Suddenly, he notices a strange disturbance far away and wonders what that loud noise could be. Suddenly, a giant root whips into Abby's and he screams, "What on earth is that thing?" as the massive root twists in the air and lunges forward like a living monster. A man dashes over, yells for someone to get the bishop, and tells them that some folks came back but the gates are gone. Abby's takes a sharp breath when he hears the news, his eyes wide with disbelief as he stares at the wounded Palm, Kiri, and Debo lying on the ground. Palm's eyes jerk open as he snaps awake. He wakes up in a bed and asks where he is, only to learn that only 3 people from the Garfer merchant group survived the portal disaster, forcing him to tell the truth about what happened inside. Palm shows that a demon is hiding inside, which completely shocks the healer. He asks for a pencil and paper to sketch the thing he saw, saying he has no idea what to call it. Abby's looks at the drawing with worry, while a man yells from a tent that it makes no sense, and the merchant guild leaders gather to ask how 100 elites vanished in a red portal, prompting Toriel from the Sky Merchant Guild to struggle with his anger after learning his cousin was among the dead. Abby's holds up a sketch and tells us that a guy named Palm said the big green ogre guards the secret doorway. The other men laugh, pointing out that green ogres can't use items, so it must have been impossible for 100 people to fight him, but one of the reps still refuses to believe it, his face turning hard. Franco from Goldrich Merchant steps in and insists his Natasha couldn't have lost to such a creature, suggesting foul play when Abby's asks what he means. Toriel backs up her suspicion by saying the 3 survivors are from the same group, which means someone could easily take advantage of them. Ibru but jumps in, yelling that he can't stand the garbage anymore and claiming maybe they survived because they had someone stronger, which makes Franco furious and accuse him of saying the other guilds aren't as good as Garfers. But Ibu fires back that he's just speaking the truth, so the fight continues as they both shoot sharp, mean words about how their guild ranks. Abby's watches the scene and asks, "Are you two done?" before Franco stands up and demands that Ayu show proof of what he's saying. Ayu insists they didn't take anything with them to begin with and had no reason to, which just doesn't make sense. Palm waves goodbye, and Abby's tells him to take care. A man beside Abby's leans in with doubt and asks if it's truly right to let them go, but Abby's answers calmly that they've already made their choice, and together the group walks on in silence through the forest. Suddenly, a creature peeks out from behind a tree and watches them. Kiri feels uneasy and asks, "Is that really following us?" while the tiny creature just stares right back without looking away. She wonders why he's stalling and urges him to just make up his mind. In a flashback, Palm reveals that they must toss away their gear and hurt themselves before stepping through the portal. He remembers what he chose in that second and holds his eyes fixed forward without wavering. Something inside the bag suddenly starts glowing and moving on its own. The plan was to kill the boss and leave the stuff behind, but Palm grabbed one of those items. It was the Phoenix Feather, a special item that made fire magic burn much hotter. Palm clutches the glowing item, realizing he must pull that unexpected score out of the portal. Kiri tries to warn him that grabbing any unmarked item would look like sabotage. She tells him to stop being greedy and follow the plan, pointing out that they've already found the exit, while the two of them chat and figure things out right in the middle of all the destruction. Palm whispers that the snail is a harmless pet that gathers items but can't fight back. He shows that it's a creature that appeared in his past life after the portal opened and tells what he knows about it. Palm proudly displays the glowing phoenix feather with the snail perched on his shoulder as he waits to see Kiri's reaction. And when she stares in amazement at the light, he explains that he'd rather take a chance and show up with something than leave her empty-handed. She asks him what his next move is and waits for a reply, but he just tells her not to rush, while Palm warns them to be careful among the ruins so that enemies don't hide even deeper. He figured the others must be back by now, so he just decided to wait out. Over in another place, it turns out many groups were wiped out and the raid was a huge disaster. A man tells us that the boss killed everyone and that, even though sabotage was suspected, the case was closed simply because there was no proof to go on. He's glad he stayed safe even though the mission failed, and he's already getting ready for the next one. He kneels before a strange figure in a room where the storm rages outside, keeping his head bowed low. His boss asks if he wasn't caught, but the man claims the whole point was to kill everyone and wonders why Palm would hide anything. He thinks Palm might have learned the Black Wizard's followers are nearby and plans to share that news, which leaves him feeling tense. He says they must kick out their spies if the story is real, but he gets cut off right in the middle by an invitation. The leader laughs at the invitation, but then says he will accept it. He chooses something special for the event and stays cool while the leader announces they will be the very first and last guests to arrive as a terrifying monster rises from the storm, radiating evil power. Debo remembers his past life was a nightmare, and finally, he faces it head on. He lived in poverty and could only watch as his sister faded away from the black blood disease.